Hey all, it's Leovold, and likely for those reading this or listening to the video, you noticed the Riot Games Red Square post on Twitter or somewhere else about layoffs, impacting 11% of their workforce overnight. You may have also seen the Legends of Runeterra 2024 State of the Game article as a small follow-up to that, talking about how it's now pivoting back to a PvE central game. What this likely means is the competitive scene is going to lose support, meaning PvP will likely follow suit, which is a big deal to myself and plenty others that I know. Competing in this game brought hundreds of people together to pursue greatness and a shared passion for the game. This is where I could go full doomer, start lashing out at Riot for failing or even choosing not to help the LOR devs make the game successful via advertising or changing monetization practices. But I don't want to do that. I always do things like that, as anger is very easy for me to latch onto when things look grim or start to get overly difficult. Instead, I want to take you all on a trip down memory lane, like a cheesy Hallmark movie, as I chat about my experience with Legends of Runeterra, and more importantly, its competitive community, over the time the game has been around. I hope that it will stay around for much longer, but we'll have to see on the 2nd of February if that'll happen or not. Nobody really knows what the future holds, but I do know this. I hold the past I had with the game and slinging digital cardboard with you all on ranked ladder or in tournaments very, very close to my heart. And I always will. For those of you watching the video, enjoy some casual Eternal games that I just played on ladder with some of my favorite board music playing in the background just for funsies because I needed something to show on the screen. There's not going to be very much specific editing or anything fancy in here. It's just going to be a small compilation of games with some of my favorite texts with some of my favorite music from the title is all it is. But, feel free to alt-tab me and just listen if you feel, or feel free to read if you'd rather do that, or sit around and watch the games and watch me, probably misplay to your heart's content. Alright. This whole ordeal starts off way back in 2019, I think. Back when the game was just being talked about by a couple creators here and there, and I caught wind of it. I played a metric shit ton of League of Legends in high school and into college, and was starting to pick up Magic the Gathering more competitively around that time with MTG Arena's release. This game interested me greatly, as it basically took one of my long-loved IPs and put it into a card game format, which was awesome because I sucked at the MOBA and really liked card games. Who'd have guessed? Eventually, the beta opens up in the summertime, and this guy named Disguised Toast played it on stream with drops enabled for access to the closed or open beta. I don't remember which one it was, but you needed an access code to get in. I remember keeping his stream open overnight as he played reruns on loop for a day, maybe 2 straight days, to get people access to the game just for watching the stream, and I got it the next morning. I played quite a bit of it, mostly discard aggro. Yeah, I know, the Control Darkness Enjoyer played discard aggro a crap ton when he started. Yeah, cool. It was a great time, and I even started brewing my own decks for fun. I had a Ezreal Ash deck that I nicknamed Piltover's Finest Ice Cream, focused on using Frostbites to flip Ezreal and get free Mystic Shots to keep the board clean, because Ezreal, believe it or not, used to give free Mystic Shots on his level 2 Nexus Strike. He just gave you a 0-cost Mystic Shot for free. It was awesome, along with all the other random, just crazy stuff that he did. It was terrible. I loved it anyway. It was just fun. It was just a fun time. Over time, I kept up with the dailies and grinding out my collection as more of a reprieve from my MTG grinding, playing expeditions or whatever tickled my fancy on ladder. I wasn't playing to be the best back then, just to have fun here and there. This was before several regions were actually in the game yet, before Bilgewater or Targon hit the scene. Eventually, life caught up with me, and I took a break from the game to catch up with some things. And then this guy named Mega Mogwai, I don't know who that guy is, popped up to my YouTube feed playing Nightfall. I remember seeing Nocturne, one of the OG champs I played back in my League days, in the thumbnail, being all excited to see him in the game. So I watched the video, grabbed the deck code, and slammed it on ladder myself until I fell asleep at my desk that day. I knew at that point I was hooked for the long haul with this game and started to sunset my time with Magic Arena. I started watching videos and listening to podcasts about the game and I never knew existed, such as Champ Select and Runeterra Radio. On their shows, particularly, I heard about Mastering Runeterra, as Jason Florent was a guest on the podcast talking about it. I ended up listening to their entire catalogs and signed up for the Patreon soon after, getting into the Discord for team calls and just hanging out, talking about how Nightfall was actually really good, and I hit peak on ladder at Plat 2 with it, and was talking about lineup construction for Gauntlets because I've never seemed to win them yet. I was not as practiced as a player as I ended up getting to, but let's put it that way. Ever since, I hung out with the MR crew for all the team calls I could make as a good source of socializing. I was a bit of a loner, and while I did have friends around at the time, many of them didn't enjoy card games, and those that did play Magic the Gathering, specifically Commander, almost exclusively, so I didn't have much of an outlet for all the excitement around the new game. It became a bit of a home for me for these things, where I just pop in and jam games at a Discord call with people going in and out, giving good or bad advice as I made my ladder climb. Eventually, this bled me into watching various streams of the community, mainly Majin Bay and What Am I at first, then Aikido, Raleigh Attack here and there where I could, and some others that were scattered around Twitch and such from all over the globe. I spent a lot of time lurking in their chats while they were playing, jamming my own games, or just having a good time. Like thousands of hours over the years, with at least one of them open, sometimes multiple. They became friends in a strange way. I've never met them in person, but we shared interests and got along well over the internet. I'd say that counts for something, though I do hope to meet them all someday, to be less of a name in a scrolling chat room and more of a person at some point. That'd be great. Eventually, the team calls and the observation helped me learn more about the game, and I started getting higher on ladder, usually mid-diamond, for a chunk of time before I made the big push to Masters in the summer of Thresh Nasus, OG Azarelia, and other things with Shurima's release into the game. On Mono Anivia, and in a Zerarelia-dominated metagame. I just enjoyed Anivia a lot, okay? For those that don't know, that matchup is abysmally bad for Anivia, like 20% to win or something crazy at the time. I somehow managed to pull it off anyway, and I was ecstatic about the achievement that seemed almost trivial to me nowadays. It was a very memorable season for me. I started playing tournaments around the time as well, though I never really did particularly well. I ended up with a 6-3 record for several seasons over that time frame. Constantly disappointed in not making day 2 like I thought I could. Still have yet to do that, honestly, which irks me much less now, but it still feels like I came up short now and again. But honestly, it's not that big of a deal to me anymore. Eventually, Mastering Runeterra pings their server for anyone interested in podcast editing, and I jump at the opportunity. I just finished getting my bachelor's degree in media production with a focus in particularly audio, so I felt I would be a pretty good fit for the job and wanted to help the community as I grew to be a part of it in my own way. While not doing the most professional gigs of anything, it was something in my field, and I could do and enjoyed doing it. The show has slowed down quite a bit, and I haven't had anything to work on since like last August, but it was a good learning experience for me and helped me make some money on the side of my regular job. Very fond memories of this, even though I had many, many fuck-ups with it that I'm sure a lot of you know. Oops. While this was going on, I also was dabbling with my own content creation for the game on YouTube, though it was mostly a hobby and not much came from it. I just kind of did it to just keep my editing chops up to date with all the stuff that I learned in school with like Premiere and whatnot. My most notable project I did was early on and took months to make, honestly. I called it Genius in Action, an LOR guide for Magic players. It was basically a tutorial where I did my best to explain the core mechanics and compare all the keywords to Magic the Gathering terminology, with every keyword or notable term I could think of in the game. Good God, that took forever to put together, but I think I did a pretty good job. I talked about updating it not too long ago, but I've just been so busy to commit hours upon hours of time trying to get all that together with all the footage and scripting and all the things that I would need to put together and chop up. I just don't have that much time these days, especially with all the new mechanics over now 2 years of sets that would take me so long. I'd have to add another set of things that would just drop by the time it was quote-unquote done. So it just wasn't something I could really feasibly do with my current schedule and some other time constraints. And now it seems I'm just out of time. Later in my competitive career, I hit my peak leaderboard placement of top 100 in the big Sun Disc season that was way too long for its own good. I think it was maybe like 2 years ago. I want to say it was like February of 2022 or something that I hit it. I was pretty proud of that, but I still wanted to get a bit more down the line. One of my goals year over year was to eventually hit the front page of ladder, but now I just don't have the time to grind the high 3 figures or sometimes even 4 figures of LP in a season. It's ridiculous how high you guys make these things. For the most part, I just made sure I qualified for seasonal tournaments back then when it was necessary to hit top 700. For one seasonal in particular, back in October, September-ish of 2022, I decided to do the very dumb thing of trying to get a 7-2 ladder placement. Usually that requires to get a top 30 on ladder, give or take, a day or two before the snapshot happened for that particular seasonal tournament the next day. I was relatively high on ladder, vibing with Lulu Jinx and Talia Ziggs, which were both very good at the time and still a couple of my favorite archetypes to date. So I thought I had a shot at it, albeit a long one, and I had plenty of time with a slow season at work. I then proceeded to tilt away about 270 LP in 3 hours, as ladder grinders do. Oh god. I ended up playing games from 7 a.m. that day to 2 a.m. the next morning or something crazy, and I was very much stressed out about taking my seasonal spot for what could be the last one. A couple people reached out to help get my head on straight or even just tell me to go the fuck to bed. Special shout out to Card Gamer and Gregory the Grey in particular there. I did eventually make it back to top 700 to secure my seasonal seat, and I think I ended up still going 6-3 for the 4th or 5th time, if my memory serves. I was a bit disappointed in myself for failing, and this is probably where the burnout with competing started to set in for me. I think a lot of it was frustration with myself for constantly coming up short over and over, but eventually I stopped enjoying competition or metagames or both. I remember a big nail in the coffin was OG Kaisa on release being a big factor for more or less bowing out of competition for a very long while. Remember Focus Speed, Overcharge, Second Scan, Valor? I remember. I don't wanna, but I do. God, that was a miserable season. I took a solid break from the game for maybe a week or two, occasionally getting the itch to play a casual game here and there. I stuck with my favorite deck of the time, Darkness, as I just generally had fun playing the archetype. It was probably my favorite deck of all time, being very closely contested with Twisted Fate Go Hard and Lulu Jinx. It was still low plat after ranked ladder reset and getting nowhere fast jamming Kaisa games earlier on. So I started at the bottom for the season and didn't really care if I won or lost, honestly. It just didn't matter all that much. Somehow along the way, I managed to go not 1, not 3, not 10, but 36 straight games in a row on Darkness. Straight wins. Across multiple sessions without losing a single one. It's like, I had a screenshot on Twitter where I eventually hit Masters at like an 88% win rate with a 41-6 record or something silly. All on Darkness, all the same list. It even got me on a list of big names with 80% win rate decks in 50 games that was on Twitter for a solid like month or something, like just for a hot minute, and then people started like jamming it, and Drizzt started like not caring about the data for that anymore, but he did initially publish that at one point, and people took a lot of interest in something like that. It was mind-boggling that I was even there. I honestly don't think it's supposed to hold up anymore, as I wasn't technically Masters rank for most of those games, but you know what? I'm gonna take those anyway. That season sucked. I'll take my wins. I slowly began to poke back in for seasonal tourneys here and there, even coming close to top cutting before I decided to punt away round 4 like I was Tom Brady against Majin by not reading my Pantheon keywords. Some of you might remember that game. It's still in one of his videos from a while ago. And yes, I do still beat myself over the head for that one on occasion, but more for jokes than anything now. It was just funny. High stress situations and whatnot. But I stopped taking them as seriously as I once did, seasonals and other like open tournaments and whatnot. If I made it, I made it. If I didn't, that was okay. That was okay with me. I started to enjoy just the spectacle of everyone coming together to play Runeterra and talk about their own seasonal runs to see if people like Duckling win the absolutely base season with Cythria Matron of all things. Eventually, I just kept up with the new sets, playing until I hit Masters in a given season, and then did other things with my free time that took my interest. But I still kind of kept up with the competitive scene a little bit, just mostly spectating and lurking into shadows and whatnot. The new competitive system, when we did have that reset a while ago to like change to like monthly open tournaments and the whole new gauntlet system and everything, that kind of fell flat for me, which I think was part of that was I knew my time in the competitive scene likely came to an end beforehand. I still jammed games, sure, and I still tried the new sessions and new, like, all the new features and all the changes and gave my 2 cents on it, but I found myself enjoying watching the content or hanging out with the people more than I did actually playing the game myself, as much as I tried to force that issue fixed. And honestly, that's the best part of this game anyways, the people. The friends I made, the moments I witnessed with misclicking cards, quips and commentary, trash talking between Americans and European players for funsies, and bragging rights with money matches, all of that was real enjoyment for me after a while. I've made so many friends, so many memories over this 4.5-ish year stretch of time over a children's card game and trying to get good. While I never took home a championship or even a top 16 board like I may have wished to, I still cherish this time I spent with all of these people. It's such a wholesome community at the end of the day, unlike the rest of the fan bases with the more popular Riot titles. Actual goddamn salt mines, trust me. Jesus Christ. I hope for the best for the game, not for me, but for everyone else involved with it. Be it content creators, developers, or players new or old. The Riot announcement described the LOR player base as a very passionate community. I'd go out on a limb and say that's a bit of an understatement. We love this game, and we want to see it grow more. We'd pay good money if there was stuff to spend it on, at least I would. Sure. Regardless of what ends up happening with the game's future, it has made a significant impact on my life and the lives of those around me. Just all the different people I got to meet, all the different things I got to do, and just having something to practice and genuinely get good at, and felt like I actually became a very good player at this game. It was nice. I want to take a second to thank all the developers involved with the creation and upkeep, especially those impacted by the latest announcement. Your work here meant far more than you could ever imagine to countless people, and I hope you will be able to continue spreading joyful experiences wherever life takes you from here. I wish you all well, and I'm going to stop rambling now because I've already taken up 20 minutes of your time just going down memory lane and blubbering on about all kinds of just experiences that I personally had. Thank you all for the wonderful experience. See you guys around.